Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. All right, so I think people can see me, people can hear me. I can't see or hear anything. Um, so I don't know what people are watching or how it's actually beaming out. It's really strange. But anyway, my name is Stella B. I am here to. Yes, I can hear you, Nate. Let me try and get you in. On the- Okay, you should be on now. No connection. Wow. Okay. It's gonna be one of those days. Okay, well he's technically he's on and somewhere in people are watching this, so I'm just gonna, with the sound now, I'm just gonna say what I just said a moment ago, just to break down a little bit about what we've been doing. So my name is Stella B. I'm the host of Out of Noise with my other whole, Nai, the lyrical alchemist, and together we've been hosting Auntie Jean's African Culture Market, which is tomorrow. Normally every third Sunday of the month, but tomorrow it's going to be the fourth Sunday of this month. Um, and Auntie Jean's African Culture Market is a spectacular experience that is a monthly market where you can come and buy all of your Kwanzaa, all of your Christmas gifts. If you're able, you should get yourself down to the Purbrick, the Magdalen Hall in Purbrick Road in Tower Bridge, and come and buy some things, watch some amazing presentations. We have Nubian Jack, who is the man behind the plaques, all of these great plaques that you see honouring people from history all around London. Nubian Jack and his cohort are responsible for. So he'll be coming in to talk about a few things. We also have Paul Chambers, who will be discussing the veterans of Afro-Caribbean heritage who they have been fighting to honour and commemorate properly. And we also have coming through the Revolutionary Minds. The Revolutionary Minds is a poetry event, a spoken word event. So for all you fantastic poets out there who are, you know, just incredible wordsmiths, this is one of the greatest opportunities for you to study Pan African great and learn all about them for a month and then put into poetry your learnings. And normally what we do is we come on live and we discuss what we've been learning with each other. But today it seems like it's going to be just me talking to you about Dedan Kimathi. So Dedan Kimathi is who was chosen by Nate the lyricist who created this whole project to study for the month. So we'll go into what my findings were about him, but really it's a shame. I think we're going to have to do this one again so that we can get a thorough breakdown from Nate, who has been going in with the study for the whole month. So we have a Revolutionary Minds WhatsApp study group where we share all of the information. So YouTube clips, any books that people should read where they're going to get a lot of information. That's also on there. And in there, people have been flooding the page, the WhatsApp group, with lots and lots of invaluable information. Invaluable as in it's gold dust. We even had someone share a clip from the great grand niece of Dedan Kimathi, and it was very empowering to watch the legacy of this Pan African hero in form of a human being who carries the same principles, the same DNA coding, the same storyline within her bloodline, talking about why she felt so drawn to a particular book that breaks down um, the the correspondence of Kimathi and the other comrades in the struggle, in the fight the rebels had against the British colonizers of the time in Kenya. So Dedan Kimathi was from Kenya, what they called Kenya. He's from the Kikuyu people, and he led the sort of battalion of the, the formed rebels, the formed military fighters against colonial intrusion and against the colonial rule by the British. So there's a long history with when the British first came to Kenya and started to, grab la- large masses of land, um, hectares and hectares of land, and stake ownership, going back going further back before the time of Winston Churchill, when the colonizers came coming into Africa and touching upon African soil. So cut forward to the 40s, 50s, you have Winston Churchill involved in sort of setting up the new modernity time period, where projects the projects to modernize the area and to create the vision of the whites of the land, in terms of modernity, what they want to build, the roads, the infrastructure, so they can funnel out more of the teas and things like that. Is that Nate? I can hear you. I can hear you. It is. Danny's watching, and I think some people might be watching, but I don't even know where we are at on the YouTube because I can't even find it, so I can see everything. Huh? No, I can't see it, but Shakara said I was live, and then Danny messaged, I can't hear you, so clearly she can see me somewhere. But I'm like, what? Because I thought it's basically going to like, we're chatting live actually, but I thought it was going on to another destination, Shakara's personal page, but I'm not actually sure what was happening. So I've just been informing people about Dedan, what I knew. I was just speaking off the top of the dome, was just saying bits. Trying, I'm trying. I'm just tapping into what has stuck into my head. But I'm glad you're here, so so you can give accurate. Yeah, and mine as well. So I don't know what that's about, but I can't see you. I don't know if I can't see you. Is your camera on? Okay, let me see. I can see you in the room. There's two of you. Why is Okay, let me boot it. No. Okay, no, but what we can do, okay, because basically Shakara is the one that let me on because he had to, because I don't know what's happening, but he was the one that let me on. Okay. Oh, let me see if I can put you on. Let me see. Why won't it let me? I've got.
I closed the tab.
Okay, you're here now.
Oh, I'm on stage. Okay, dope, 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 dope.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we're working with. That's what we're working with. Hello, people. Peace, 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 peace. We made it. We made it. This is the best we're gonna get, I think.
Yes.
You know, we're still in the. I think we're still in the post shadow phase of the Mercury
I knew
retrograde.
you was gonna say that, but
We're
what?
still in that post shadow phase, and Mars is doing bits as well. Mars is all going backwards and that. So
Okay.
yeah, but we're
Excellent.
here.
Yes, we're here. We're here. So I've just explained to
Excellent.
who heard me about the general overview, and I started with sort of the history of Kenya in terms of the colonizers and Winston Churchill. I got to Winston Churchill basically, but you may want to go back again and start from, you know,
No, carry on. I'll add on to what you're saying
no,
because
no,
we've had this conversation at least twice now, I think. So I'm sure you
I
know as
know,
much as I do. We've had 1 month of study each, sis. So
no,
I'm sure you know as
honestly,
much as I know on this.
I'm gonna say you really don't. Honestly, you've read some of Kimathi's book, words, his own words. I
I
haven't.
have. I've read this one. This is the book I've read. It is called. Well, it's called Kenya's Freedom Struggle, but another name for it is the Dedan Kimathi Papers.
Yeah,
And what this basically is for the listeners is it is a it's a collection of letters, among other things, but it's a collection of letters that was written by Dedan Kimathi to like his troops, or by him to like diplomats or foreign officials, or from his troops or from foreign officials to Dedan Kimathi. Um, and a couple of other letters are in there as well, but mainly that's kind of the vibe.
yeah,
Excellent book. Oh my days. I've highlighted quite a few points that I'm intending on sharing today. So I've got like a lot of highlighter pen in here that I want to kind of read through. But I think you're right to start with Churchill, or even, yeah, even before that. But you're definitely even before that, I think it's very important to start with the spiritual beliefs of the Gikuyu people. That is
yeah,
something that really piques my interest. So um, again, I do like to throw my disclaimer. So, just as a disclaimer, yeah, I've done 1 month of study on Dedan Kimathi. I am not Kenyan born. There is so much information about Kenya that I do not know. I've got some good friends that are Kenyan and I've been picking their brains, but obviously I'm not going to be able to relay what they've told me as clearly as they've told me. So this is really like a almost an informal conversation between myself and Stella on the subject. And I would strongly recommend that you guys do your own research as well, because that is the point of what we're doing here. Yeah, the idea of this Revolutionary Minds project is that each month we pick someone, we study them, we spend the month studying them, we learn as much as we can. I have learned so much, but that doesn't mean that everything I say is going to be 100%. So please double check it, check for yourself, etc., etc. Right? So, okay. Um, the spiritual beliefs of the Gikuyu is
yeah,
that they believe that God, who they call Ngai, came down to Mount Kenya, and that is where life started, as I understand it. Yeah. So the first man, his name was Gikuyu, and the first woman, her name was Mumbi, and together they had 9 daughters, and those 9 they lived well for a long time, and then the 9 daughters wanted husbands, so they spoke to Ngai, and he said, get 9 sticks according to your height and put them in the fire. They did that, and then the next day there was 9 sexy man there waiting for them. Yeah. So they all took their husbands, and they all started to spread civilization from there. So that is important. And the reason that is important is because it shows how connected the Gikuyu were to the land that was taken from them. Yeah,
yeah,
for them, it's more than just I grew up in I grew up in Barking. Do you know what I mean? It's more than that. Yeah. It's like this is where we were placed by God. This is where my ancestry has been. We have been taught to work the land. We cannot abandon this land. This is it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we are holding this land. Yeah. It's a spiritual mission for them to live on that land and to cultivate it and to nurture it and to protect it and etc. So fast forward anyway, like you're saying, Churchill, even I think before Churchill, or was it before Churchill or was it Churchill? When the British came and with
before.
enslaved Indians, that was before Churchill, yeah, and built a
Oh
railway.
no,
I think it was before him still. I think it
yeah,
was before him, but I can't remember the year. Um, But the British came before, I think, before Churchill, and they wanted to build a railway in Kenya for no apparent reason, just because they wanted to put their foot there, innit? So they brought some enslaved Indians that they had with them, because Kenya is on the east coast. So they wanted that area for a couple of reasons. One reason was because it would have granted them access to India, so they could have, bought, had better access to Indians and traffic them through. Another reason they really wanted the land, I've come to learn, was because the land was very fertile, yeah, and they wanted to grow certain things there, which we'll come to in a second. So first things first, um, they have uh, they've built this railway slap bang through the land. Yeah, just cut through the land. So the people who lived there, the British were saying things to each other like, no one lives there. It's just nomads who live there. No one cares about this land. Yeah, the people who are there, they're wanderers, they're nomads. They're not going to be fussed if we take the land. So they just took the land for themselves. They thought, this is our place. Um, this is a new world for us British to come and settle. Typical of the British. So they've settled the land. They've built this railway smack bang through the middle, and in doing so, they've moved a lot of Kenyans off of their ancestral land, and that, I think, was the beginning of the issue, as I came to see it.
Mm.
So fast forward, because Churchill was 1907, I think, was the first time he went to Kenya. But then
Okay.
still, fast forward past that, Kenya officially became a colony in 1920,
Yes.
when the
Right.
British
They
took it off
take
of the
Zan Sultan of
Sultan
yeah,
of Zanzibar. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. So Britain became a colony in 1920. They basically took it and bought it for themselves, or claimed it for themselves, however they went about doing that. And they have one of the things that they wanted to do, the settlers were doing, is they were planting tea leaves there. So to get the best quality tea, they needed highlands, so they needed a certain altitude, and that was what they were doing. They were basically segregating, so that there were areas that they were segregating and saying this area is for the white settlers only. Yeah, and any Kenyans can't come here unless they would come to work. They would come here, they would work on the farms where they were cultivating the tea leaves, and then they would go back home or back to the concentration camps that they were keeping them in. Yeah, but they weren't. They were moved off of their ancestral land for now years. For now years, and the white settlers were there growing these tea leaves. An interesting thing that I've come across that I feel like is worth mentioning on this review
yeah.
is that those plantations today are owned by Lipton. So Lipton tea, which is very popular in the UK and also popular in the USA. And I don't
In
know if it's popular
Nigeria,
anywhere else in the world,
it is. It's
but
very popular in Nigeria and Africa, different parts of it.
is it
That's the tea.
really?
Yeah, that's their
That's the
PG.
tea.
Yeah,
Okay.
my
I didn't know
mum
that
drinks
still.
it.
It was apparently owned by Unilever
Yes.
initially. Yeah,
Yeah.
Unilever were like they were the big players, but they've sold it off to a private company. I think as recently as 2022,
Oh.
they sold it off to a private company, but it's still Lipton that
Okay.
is, it's that tea.
Yeah.
So boom. Um, so obviously, while this is all happening now, we're gonna fast forward to the Kenya Land Freedom Army. Um, I didn't actually get to the point of ascertaining who started or who founded the Kenya Land Freedom Army. Did you?
I
Did you hear
believe so.
anything about who actually
Find it
started
again.
it? Who started it?
Yeah, let me try and
Thank
find
you.
it. But carry on. Yeah.
I was gonna say Dedan Kimathi joined it, I think, at the age of 32. That was something that I found.
Okay.
Um, he joined it at 32, but he wasn't the person who started it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't like he
I'll get
initiated
that for
the
you because I
army.
did see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Find it.
Um, So, again, it wasn't just him, one person who was fighting against colonization, yeah, or he wasn't the only person in Kenya. There were a lot of different people. There are quite a few contemporaries of Dedan Kimathi that are worth mentioning. Um, Jomo Kenyatta definitely being one, you
Yeah.
know, there's a group that I posted in the group chat. I can't remember, there's the Kaparinga Six or something like that. I can't remember, probably butchering that first word, but it was like a group of six who, again, were fighting against colonization. They were contemporaries. There were quite a few contemporaries of Dedan Kimathi. Um, One of my Kenyan friends runs a Pan African bookshop in Peckham, and he wrote me a list of people to research. So I did. Have you found the name?
Yeah, so formed October 1st, 1944, with the veteran political leader Harry Tuku as its president, and then Francis
Okay, excellent.
Kamisi became its secretary, while Albert Onwinyo became its treasurer. It had a representative
Hmm.
committee of seven, which included John K. Kabaso, who was South Nyanzan, um, James Samuel Gikuru. Did you just mention a Gikuru guy? Oh no. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was in 1944, and the main person was someone called Harry Tuku.
excellent. Thank you. Okay, that's a name worth
First
worth
of
checking out still, because I never even got that far. So that is definitely a name worth checking out. I feel like I have heard his name, but I haven't done like a deep dive into him this month, which I should have really, seeing as this is the subject. um,
Yeah.
okay, so what else did I find? What else did I find? Dedan Kimathi, basically, he's joined the army. He's worked his way up to field marshal. Um, a lot of political back and forth, and ultimately, one of the reasons why I found him to be such a respectable revolutionary is his kind of like his non-negotiable stance. So some of his contemporaries were kind of made peace with the British, or kind of made peace with the idea that they were there. As we said, they are still there to this day.
Mm.
Yeah. So some kind of made peace with the fact that they were there, and they were like, look, we want equality with the British. Whereas Dedan Kimathi was saying, get out. He wasn't saying we want equality. He was saying non-negotiable. We want our land back. We want you off of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Um, what the Gikuyu were that was the people. Yeah, that was the name of the actual people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ethnic groups
Yes.
in Kenya. A lot of different tribes. There's the Luo, who's my friend's Luo.
Yeah.
There's the Maasai. There's loads. The Gikuyu is like the major one, and
Bushites,
they are.
the
Say
Somalis,
again.
Bushites.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and the Gikuyu are Bantu.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
What they called
they're
it.
Bantu. Yeah, that's yes, right. So what the Kimathi was doing, or what the Kenya Land Freedom Army was doing, is they were in the forests of Mount Kenya and other forests in Kenya. And they were kind of like bringing guerrilla warfare tactics onto the British. So they would hop out and just, they had very limited ammunition. Some of the letters that they're sharing, they're talking about, yeah, we have 13 bullets and we're sending them to you. Do you know what I'm saying? So imagine, imagine, like, their ammunition was so low that if someone had 7 bullets, he would have to ship those 7 bullets across the forest to another camp where they would then have those 7 bullets and they would use them. Do you know what I'm saying? A large up brother minister, respect, respect, yeah, man. um, so yeah, they basically were. sharing ammunition. They were limited, but what they were doing is they were using like nails as bullets. So
Yeah.
when they didn't have bullets, they would literally put nails inside the gun, and it was working fine.
Yeah.
Guerrilla warfare, guerrilla tactics.
Yeah.
Just like John Jack Dessalines, another of my favorite
Yeah.
revolutionaries. Was using popping up. Literally, they would attack, then they would disappear, then they would pop up somewhere miles later. And like, how do you know? How did you get there?
Yeah.
They were cornering them. Um, Obviously, the British were fighting back. Um, but so okay, two things. There were loyalists. They were referred to as loyalists. Yeah, so these are people who were kind of loyal to the British. Um, the the Kenyaland Freedom Army insisted that anybody who joined um, took an oath.
Yeah.
The oath is to say, "I will fight and die for Kenya." Do you know what I'm saying? I won't rest until white people are off the land, or until the British are off the land and they're no longer, doing what they're doing, or we have the land as our own. I won't stop. Yeah, they took an oath to that effect. Um, the British started making Kenyans take an oath as well,
Yeah.
to say, we won't join the Kenyan Land Freedom Army, or we will respect the Queen. I think it was an oath to the Queen of England or some
Yeah. That's
nonsense. Yeah, madness. Um, So that was kind of the energy at the time. So the Kenya Land Freedom Army were also, they weren't just fighting the British, but they were also fighting against the loyalists as well. Yeah, so they were coming out and they were attacking Kenyans. Like, if you are loyal to the British, then you die as well. That was the energy that they had. It was completely non-negotiable. It was like, you are coming out, and anyone who supports you is coming out as well, which I rate that highly still.
mm.
Um, Okay, let me see. Have I missed anything? Um,
Well, we can talk. So we can go into the actual sort of. I don't know if you found any stories to do with the actual battles and what the kind of things they were doing to kind of strategically um, have an impact, which made the decision for the British to have to feel that they had to round up people and essentially commit genocide. Um,
mm,
so they were doing,
yeah. What?
but they were
Mm,
actually making a real loud statement in the fight in terms of some of the stuff that they actually did to the British and to some of the landowners. I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit or.
um, Sorry. Can you expand on that a bit?
Oh,
So I
like
might not be catching
basically
what you're saying.
the actual things that the freedom fighters were doing that made the British
Other
react.
than what I've just said,
Yeah, like as
they were
in
in the
the
forest. So they were in the forests, and they
yeah,
had camps in the forest, like multiple camps. Yeah, like they had different camps set up in different places. No one person knew where all the camps were. Right? They had different camps, and they're just in the forest. And it was like guerrilla camps, and they would come out. They would attack the British. They would attack the loyalists, and then they would disappear.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
what the British started to do
yeah,
is they started to call the Kenya Land Freedom Army. They named them the Mau Mau.
yes,
And what they did was they used that as a way to, as you said, to commit genocide. Anybody who looked at a British person funny, anybody who gave them bad attitude, anybody who turned their nose, that person is Mau Mau, and they were killed. Yeah, or they
mm,
were executed for it. um, because the Mau Mau were using guerrilla tactics, and they did have like a very extensive network. So people in the villages were helping them. Some of the villagers were cooking them food and getting it in there. Some of the villagers were taking guns from the British and bringing it to the soldiers in the forest. Like the women would be carrying whatever on their back. I don't know, rice or whatever. They'd be carrying it on their back, but underneath was guns, or they'll put the guns inside the rice. Do you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And carry them and bring them to the guerrillas, to the soldiers.
mm,
So that was obviously very stressful for the British. They were getting cooked. They weren't liking it. Um, yeah, they were fighting back basically, and what they were doing was herding Kenyans into these concentration camps. They were firing at them just at will. Um, they were crushing testicles with like pliers, just but they would take like a bottle, they would fill it with boiling hot water, and they would insert it into a woman's vagina. They were psychotic, as everybody on this platform knows. Yeah, they were completely lost in the source. They were just doing way too much to be considered human.
Yeah.
Um, which is why the Kenya Land Freedom Army stood on their non-negotiation standard. They were like, "Listen, you guys need to get out. That's it. We're not going to live with you. We're not going to have you, and you guys have to go."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So the main aim
but
for
yeah, yeah.
really to crush the spirit of the Kikuyu people and the what they then named the Mau Mau movement or rebellions, but it also shows the pattern of behavior when it comes to propaganda and
Mm,
making out. So, like you were saying earlier, they would send reports back to the UK or back, to sort of justify their actions. So they would put reports out about the brutality of the Mau Mau. It's kind of like if you think
mm,
about certain groups today, certain cells that they call terrorist cells and etc. It's a similar type of thing. They name them a name, like Boko Haram or ISIS or whatever, and these rebellions need to be stopped, and they're brutally doing this and that. But really, when you actually look deeper into the thing, you'll see that the people behind the actual brutality are from the West. They're the people that are constructing the whole issue in the first place. So they make it out that basically, if you fight for your rights, if you want fair education in your own homeland, if you want your heritage recognized as important as the original people, you are the issue. When really you're
mm,
standing upright. And what they need to do is evilly and forcefully crush that. That is their tactic. That's how they've managed to create empires, is through violence and no other means, really. The violence
mhm.
was within the church that they so-called brought around the world, and all these religions that have suppressed our African spirituality. So just wanted to kind of add that bit into
An
kind of
excellent point.
um
Absolutely.
yeah.
And of
So
course, because we have the gift of hindsight, because we're here in 2020, nearly 2025,
mm,
so we can look at, like, holistically all the things they've done, like you said, in Nigeria, in South Africa, in East Africa, in Caribbean. Do you know what I'm saying? We can look at all of them and we can be like, raw, these guys, this is their MO, this is how they behave. Do you know what I'm
mm,
saying? Like, this is how they behave.
yeah,
And
it's a
hopefully people who are paying attention will let that inform their decisions as to how they behave around the British.
So I mean, it's really interesting because you're saying you're talking to some of your Kenyan friends now to kind of get a bit more of a context of how the people feel today. And it was
Mm,
interesting about the Mau Mau name, because when we found that out, I immediately I was like, oh wow, this is something that they didn't want as a title. They didn't ask for as a name. But now it's like the N word. Someone said it's kind of like, oh yeah, we're owning
mm,
it now. We were pointing it out to
mm,
Mikel Amin, who, for those who don't know, who runs Cheza Rojo. He's um, a musician and artist and does several things in the community as well. But he goes to
mhm.
Kenya and he's been doing works with the
Serious work up there, yeah, mum.
yeah, really big works with the youth as well. So obviously we were like, right, he'll know a bit about the Mau Mau and stuff like that. But he did, and it was interesting telling him about Mau Mau. Like the name Mau Mau is not actually from the people, and he's like, no, it is from the people. The people use it. That's what they call the rebels. It was a Mau Mau movement, and I was like, wow, no, but actually, there's just footage that's not that long ago of the people correcting that, the people that were in it saying, no, we didn't call ourselves that. That's not what our name is. That's the British
Mm,
trying to put their name on us. And I was talking to Nat and I think Danny about it, and maybe Yems, and I was saying, in a name, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of power in what you call yourself, and there's that over what others will call you as well. And as we know, the English language is full of spells and tricks and things to
Mm.
kind of suppress the power of another human being, right? So yeah, I really was like, that was a real moment for me of like, oh, this thing, you can't now go to a community and be like, you know what, you can't be using that M word. You can't be using that double M word, because
It
it's
is
not,
it's an interesting paradigm, isn't it? Like,
you know,
because
they
they
they associate,
prior to the British, it meant nothing. That word meant nothing to any
nothing.
Kenyan.
Yeah,
That
but
word
now
meant nothing to any Kenyan.
it's still
And
associated. Yeah.
I wonder if things had gone differently. Um, would like if Dedan Kimathi had survived, or if the Kenya Land Freedom Army had got what they wanted, which is the complete expulsion of the British, which has not happened. If they had got what they wanted, would that still be the case in Kenya? Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like because the British kind of kept their hands on Kenya quite a bit, I think they have in some way kind of like informed the social, like the way people refer to the Kenya Land Freedom Army. You know,
100%. Every
I think they have still.
Yeah, because every single person who can tell their own narrative is going to put it in exactly their own tongue, right? They're not going to be saying, yeah, the Mau Mau
Exactly.
that. They will be saying,
Yeah, exactly.
so, and then, even, did you watch the footage of the great grandniece of Dedan Kimathi speaking?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So powerful. What a good
Mm.
find someone had found in the WhatsApp group that I was explaining earlier. And she was reading from the book that you found so valuable,
That's
the
why I got the book, because I heard that and I was like, I'm grabbing the book.
oh, so you'd heard it before.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That
Okay.
was one of the first videos that I caught. So I saw that. I was like,
Oh,
whoa. And I was like, because I was looking for books, and then she apparently has written a book as well, and I can't find
yes.
her book because
Oh,
that's the book I wanted. But then I found this one, and I was like, let me grab. I wasn't even sure if it was authentic, because, like I said, I don't know much about Kenyan history, so I'm hearing Minor wa Kenyatta, forward Banguji wa Tiongo. I don't know either of these people. I
mm,
have since done research on them both, and they are both very powerful people in and of themselves. Both serious and respectable people. So this is a find. I'm very glad to have this in my library, and I would recommend that everybody gets a copy of this book and gets a copy of it in their library because it was so
well, I'm
insightful.
really looking forward to you reading some bits of it actually, because you're gonna get the
Come on,
chance
them.
to hear his his voice. And we didn't really point
Uh,
out that he is a writer and a poet.
mm. He's a
And
poet. He's a
right,
poet.
and the forces of the British, he was excellent at English. He was an excellent
Mm,
student. Just to give you some flesh into this man, why he was so influential wasn't just the brute force and the willingness to stand on the front line. He actually was incredibly smart, incredibly influential on the people. Great leader, and so passionate about all the people that were involved. So his
mm,
grandniece was saying, when she read about the fact that he would send letters to every single member of the struggle, personal life, like he knew all of them.
mm,
So it mattered to him their health, that he would send items and goods for them, or he wrote of giving shoes, his final pair of shoes, to another soldier that needed them, so he would say
mm-hmm,
for a pair. So all of this shows
mm-hmm,
you, and so when you have a different version that is sold to you by the British, and consequently some of the historians in Kenya who are black but are reading from these British accounts, you're going to get a different impression of who he was. Because they just think
mm.
he's just violent, um, what just the
Yeah,
same way
thug. You know what I mean? Just like a
yeah,
soldier with, brain damage who just wants to kill and boom, like a British soldier. But he was nothing like that. He was nothing like that. He wasn't someone who came into someone else's land. He was literally a dedicated and respectable, nationalist who was fighting for his own land and for his own people and for his own race. You know what I mean? He wanted like um, he wanted not even his children, but like the children of Kenya to inhabit the land. That's what he wanted. He was like, this land is our land and we must claim it back so that future generations can have it. That was what he was doing,
yeah,
as opposed to him just
right.
wanting to fight.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
so deep because you're going to read his parts, but he was also quoted as
a
saying
lot.
similar to Steve Biko. So
Mm,
he it's better to die. I'm going to find the exact quote, but it's very similar quote to Steve Biko's quote, and I couldn't quite believe it because I was like, this was before. So that theory of
mm,
the soul of and the energy of freedom fighters kind of jumping and going into different humans at different points is really
yeah.
true. The poetry thing is a link, like
He
which is
also
also
inspired Mandela, didn't he?
he
If
also
I remember
inspired
rightly.
right, right.
Mandela as well, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Came to
So
Kenya looking for him, and he was like, "We need to get this guy like a statue or something, because he was like, we definitely can't forget this man."
yeah. So
Mm,
yeah, it's just good to really get the flesh of the man and really see his heart because he was passionate about this and he loved his
okay.
people. So yeah, go ahead.
So the way this book is set out, it's very good. It's really good. The way it's set out is it's a series of. It's not just a series of letters. It's also got some of the rules and regulations. Like some of it is a bit. Um, it's like a list. Do you know what I mean? Like this, these are the rules. Boom, 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 boom. Do you know? And it wasn't necessarily written by him. It was these were the rules that he abode by and that he passed on. That he was carrying on with. So I want to see if I can find some of them as well. But I want to be clear about what I'm reading when I'm reading it, so that you don't think I'm reading his words when I'm reading something that's not. So I'll
And
let you know which parts were him and which parts were somebody else or whatever.
give thanks.
Um, but something that he does say, no, this is Major General Chumali. Okay, hold on. This was a meeting of the Kenya Defense Council. Um, they were discussing how the history of the struggle should be preserved for future generations. That was something. So they were talking about record every battle, record all the property destroyed by enemy forces, list the names of the home guards, headmen, and chiefs in the region, list the names of the Mau Mau cadres and leaders in the area, list the names of the widows, orphans, detained compatriots in the area. This was the standard, and that is something that I think is very much so reinforced throughout this book. Yeah, that it was very important for them to document everything. And unfortunately, the British destroyed a lot of those documents. They burned down a lot of them still.
Yeah,
Um, but this one, okay, this is a good one. This is a good one. So was this the same meeting? This was the Kenya Parliament. It says minutes of the Kenya Parliament, EF1/3/3/629. So I don't think that's a date. I don't know what that is, but it's the minutes of the Kenya Parliament.
yeah.
Um, and it starts off with the Secretary General of the Kenya Parliament, um, who says our principal aim was to gain independence for the whole of Kenya, not just the central province alone, yeah, which was inhabited by the Gikuyu, but the whole of Kenya. We want basically freedom for, independence for. He clearly pointed out that our liberation struggle was closely linked with the struggles of the peoples of East Africa and the rest of the continent. So that's what these guys were on. Fast forward, fast forward.
Mm.
Um, Karari, the Secretary General, he also says when a unit commander starts talking about of my location, my district, my army, my camp, He violates the rules and regulations of the Kenya Parliament and should be considered a criminal, an enemy of the great struggle, and he should be severely punished. So what they were saying was that, let's say we've got this Revolutionary Minds project, right? And um, I don't know, let's say Nat was to be like, this is my Instagram page. Do you know what I mean? Then that's a problem,
Mm.
is kind of what they were saying. Yeah. So they were saying, even though you are the commander of a group, that doesn't mean they're your group. Doesn't mean that you are anybody. You are a cog in the machine.
Mm.
Yeah. And the machine was the Kenya Land Freedom Army. And they had very, very clear, rigid, concise rules that must be followed, must be adhered to by absolutely everybody.
Mm.
Right. And that is important because of what happens next in this meeting. So General Kimbo, there's a conversation between General. I'm just going to read the whole thing because why not? Or I'll read the whole thing. It's like a page. It's like a page and a half. I'm going to read it. Um, okay, so General Kimbo says, to strengthen the armed struggle, he said, we members of the Kenya Parliament must treat each other and each member, regardless of his rank and title, must accept the collective decision of the Parliament. I'm saying this because after the Parliament made the decision that any comrade who wants to see the Marshal, Dedan Kimathi, should seek my permission first, the Marshal himself has decided to disregard this decision by allowing certain comrades to see him without consulting me. Said
Mm.
Kimbo, for instance, Comrade Karari and Commander Abdullah are with the Marshal every evening. My question, therefore, is this: who has given them permission to visit the Marshal? Secondly, why does Kimathi allow them to visit him without my knowledge? Does it mean that there are those of us whom the Marshal trusts and others whom he distrusts? Isn't this Supreme Council weakened when its president disregards its rules and regulations? This really disturbs me. So Marshal Dedan Kimathi replies, in response to this criticism, Kimathi said that he was pleased with General Kimbo's concern about roles and responsibilities in the struggle and that he fully supported that line. He said that with the exception of Karari and Commander Abdullah, who had visited him without Kimbo's permission, no other comrades had been allowed to see him without the general's knowledge. The general says, in reply, General Kimbo told Kimathi that what he seemed to have forgotten was that he was the most important personality in the struggle, and that is why we were so much concerned with his security. But we could only protect him from the British enemy and national traitors, Kimbo went on, if he, Kimathi, would accept the collective decision, the rules and regulations of the Kenya Parliament. Addressing Kimathi's response more specifically, Kimbo said, you said that you only allowed comrades Karari and Abdullah to see you without my knowledge. But I remember Comrade Nduritu, Watieru, visiting you 2 nights ago. If we cannot trust each other, be sincere to one another, maintain close relations with one another, then I don't see how we can lead this great struggle. In support of General Kimbo, Brigadier Kirihinya, Commander Nduritu Watuita, and Major Ndururi criticized Dedan Kimathi for his actions and demanded that he accept Kimbo's criticism. And this is the section that I've highlighted, yeah? Marshal Dedan Kimathi, acknowledging that he had been wrong, Kimathi said, I accept Kimbo's criticism and I apologize to this body and to individual comrades for not maintaining the discipline of the movement. The error I have committed is serious. I hope I will never repeat it. I know that lack of discipline and misunderstandings cause serious errors in our military organization, and that is why I clearly understand and appreciate General Kimbo's concern.
Mm.
Boom. Man, so for me, one reason why I was really taken with that is like the modesty. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there was no hubris, there was no pride, there was no you know who I am. Like we're not talking about him stealing, we're not talking about him I don't know, doing anything mad. Literally, he had a conversation with someone. That was it. He was talking to his friend. But in terms of like how strict the military was, yeah, one of the rules was that you can't talk to nobody unless they come through your bodyguard first. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because you are the most important. We have to make sure you are safe. So anybody who sees you, they have to come to me. So obviously he might have just been a bit lackadaisical with that at one point, and he might have just thought, you know what, it's calm. This is my friend. I'm going to talk to my friend. Yeah. but he got reprimanded for doing that, and he accepted it, and he apologized clearly. No like back and forth with it. So I thought that was very dope in terms of just giving us some kind of insight into his personality.
Mm.
That was one of the first things. That was one of my favorite things that I highlighted. Um, okay, this one is Sergeant Kinyanjui on the subject of financial assistance for widows and orphans. So Sergeant Kinyanjui told the meeting that it was the duty of army commanders to see that widows, orphans, and other war victims were receiving financial assistance. The
Mm.
fund, which had been reserved for this purpose, he said, should be distributed equally among these people. Commander Mutui added that most of the war victims were in central Kenya and the settled areas, and that their condition was very serious. He said that every camp should use all means necessary to help these compatriots. So I thought that was very dope.
Mm.
Commander Dr. Kingori, on the subject of medicine, informed us that in order to be self sufficient in medicine, we should try to manufacture our own medicine from the leaves and roots of certain trees, like our ancestors used to do. He said that any comrade who knows a particular tree which produces healing medicine should report about it to the medical unit. It was agreed that thorough research should be conducted to identify such trees. That was in 54. That was super interesting. That was another thing I highlighted. Okay, boom. I like this story. I really
Okay.
like this story, or at least the first part of it. Okay, this is the report on our mission to Kiambu. Um, Let me just find out who is actually speaking right now. Uh, this is a report that I believe was sent to Dedan Kimathi.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a report that was sent to him. Um, So it says, we started out our journey from the Honey River in Yandara. We were 20 guerrilla fighters who had been sent by Field Marshal Kimathi Wachiori to politicize the masses in Kiambu in the name of Gikuyu and Mumbi. Gikuyu and Mumbi is the first man and woman, Gikuyu and Mumbi. So that was their religion, that was their belief. Do you know what I mean? After walking for 12 miles, it started raining heavily and we were soaking wet. Captain Wangombe Wamwangi suggested that we should make a fire to warm ourselves, but this suggestion was turned down. We decided to proceed with our journey despite the rain and cold. At about 1 p.m., we rested and ate our lunch. Then we started off, and after walking half an hour, we saw two rhinos grazing across the path we were following. Commander Watiori tried to force them to move from our path, but they resisted violently. To avoid a dangerous confrontation, Commander Waiwa commanded us to go back and try to find another path. But the beasts followed us. They were ready for a fight.
Hmm.
They troubled us for half an hour before we managed to escape. We could have gunned them down with our machine guns, but KLFA's rules prohibited the killing of animals unless it was for food. Come on, man. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, come on. For me, that was definitely worth highlighting. I thought that was a cool point.
Mm.
Okay, yeah. On that, in that same report, they found some loyalists that were delivering milk. They saw one loyalist bringing milk to the station on a donkey. The commander gave the order. They captured the man. They seized the milk and everything he had in the name of the struggle. He looked frightened and shocked that they decided not to kill him, but they made it clear to him that if he reported the incident to the colonial authorities, they would find him and cut him down. Says we released the bastard after giving him a good beating. We drank the milk, released the donkey, and then we left the station, following the tarmac road for 20 miles. Which was funny. Um, okay, we were given a friendly greeting. What else have I highlighted? I want to stick to my highlights because there's a lot of good stuff in here. Okay, this is an interesting point. So this is a letter that was written by Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi. And the first line is the line that I've highlighted. Again, I could read the whole thing, but the first line was the one that I highlighted because I thought it was very interesting. He says, Dear Sir, after taking a long journey traveling throughout Africa and Palestine for 3 months, I have found many things that have changed and evil has increased a great deal. Then Gaddafi went to Palestine.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then
Does it
Gaddafi
say
went
yeah?
Palestine. He went to Palestine and he looked at it. Say again.
Does it say the yeah?
Um, does it say the year? It says, I have told all our leaders of our army in the forest to stop fighting from the 1st of August 1953. So I guess it was probably around 52, 53 that he
Wow.
went. Yeah. He said after a long journey, 3 months, traveling throughout Africa and Palestine for 3 months, he basically went on a bit of a pilgrimage, saw what was going on, kind of got the lay of the land, which I thought was really cool. It's a good letter. There's loads of stuff that he says, but really, I want to kind of focus on the. Do you know what? I'm going to read this letter. This is an open letter to the British authorities. It says, Dear Sir, after taking a long journey traveling throughout Africa and Palestine for 3 months, I have found that many things have changed and evil has increased a great deal. For the return of peace and the birth of a new Kenya, I have told all leaders of our army in the forest to stop fighting from the 1st of August 53. General Kaihu Itina, who is a special leader, is now under arrest for attacking Kagundwini, the Tetu location of Chief Muhoya Kagumba of Nyeri, without my permission. We want peace, but we maintain that we must first be recognized as a people.
Mm.
We will always find food despite your efforts to stop us from getting it. This is an open letter to the British authorities, remember, yeah?
Yeah.
As a member of the Defence Council of the whole of Africa and the president of its branch in Kenya, I asked the colonial government to withdraw all its armed forces, the police, the KAR troops, etc., from all areas of our country and stop the European settlers from hunting in the forest. Then fighting will cease and racial cooperation will be established. I am telling you very clearly that there is no Mau Mau. Since the poor man is Mau Mau, it is only Mau Mau which can finish Mau Mau, not bombs and other weaponry. Because of the colonial government's policy of moving people without any consideration and of harassing them in the reserves, many people have come to the forest for fear of being killed or badly beaten. As a result, Mau Mau has increased 1,000 times, and now I am glad I have many soldiers. When,
Mm.
when the Kenya African Union was prescribed, I congratulated the colonial government because I received many askaris. Many Africans who were confined in Nairobi said that they had been given a good reason to follow me in the forest. Every week and every month, I received many people in my office coming from Nairobi, Nakuru, and other small towns. One, if people are being wantonly attacked in the towns and even in the reserves, how can they put up with it without running into the forest? Two, if the police and KAR home guards withhold food, who can put up with hunger? Three, if there is no political organization here in Kenya, why should everyone not side with the Mama? Four, if color discrimination continues in Kenya, will the Africans who have eyes, ears, and a brain remain the underdog? Five, it is better to die than to live in misery. Why should we put up with suffering in our hearts? Now, it is the responsible of the colonial government to see whether what I have said is true or not. The foundation of lawful cooperation is also the foundation of peace, wealth, and progress. Why should the colonial government not believe me? I am certain after next month it will. Yours, Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi. Boom. Sent a copy of that letter to the editor of Habari za Dunia for publication, etc., etc., etc. Okay, cool. More letters, more letters. Letters to the colonial chiefs. Let me find some more stuff that I've highlighted. The general China thing was interesting. Um, yeah, release of the KA unit. No green branches will be raised in Kenya. In other words, there will be no ceasefire until our demands are met. Boom. This was the energy. Oh, I like this one. Okay, it's a short one. Recommendation for joining the guerrilla army. To the Kenya Parliament. Hannah Wamuyu is an educated and intelligent girl. She loves her country and people very much. Although many educated women cannot be trusted nowadays, Wamuyu can be. She is a committed and serious patriot. She is a trained nurse, so she can help in reorganizing our hospitals. She can also type. I am, therefore, recommending that she be allowed to join the Liberation Army. I like that. That was a nice little short story about Hannah Wamuyu. Big up Hannah Wamuyu. You get me? She got she got a whole little paragraph in the book where they were just like, this is just a collection of letters. So this was just one letter that they found where somebody was recommending somebody joins the guerrilla army, because obviously, because of the nature of the way that they were organized, you can't just walk up and be like, "Hi, I want to join." Do you know what I mean? Like, someone has to vouch for you. Someone has to be like, "Yeah, boom, this person's cool," or you have to prove yourself in some way. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't. There were a lot of loyalists, and the Kikuyu or the KLFA were probably a little bit jumpy. Um, there was this story here for with General China, some guy called General China, which is pretty interesting actually, because part one is in this section about terms for negotiation. I won't read the whole thing because it's like a couple pages. But basically, one of the generals, General China, wrote a letter to Dedan Kimathi. Greetings as usual. I'm writing to tell you about the development of the situation since I was captured. I was shot in January 54 and captured. The bullet passed through the veins on my neck. My throat was injured. I could hardly breathe. Yeah, he says, on 3rd of February 54, I was sentenced to death by the British court. I've appealed my sentence, but I don't know whether they'll accept my appeal. However, whatever they decide does not matter much to me. At any rate, I know as soon as I hear from you, I'll let you know their final decision. I've had several times. I might as well just read it. He said, I've had several talks with colonial government officials and I've given them a letter to send to the governor. During our discussions, they asked me why you lead terrorists and what prevents them from surrendering. I told them that they don't surrender because they fear being killed. In this regard, I tried to enlighten them on the mistakes they make when they capture the freedom fighters, particularly the guerrilla leaders, and kill them instead of talking to them in order to know the reason behind the fighting and how it can be stopped. Furthermore, I told them if they want the guerrillas to surrender, they should remove their armed forces from the reserve, which is where they were keeping the Kenyans, as a gesture of goodwill or compromise. But there are some questions they asked me concerning this issue. That is, if they remove their armed forces from the reserves, what will happen to the Tata Chiabururi? I can't remember what that is. Hold on. There's an appendix at the front which will remind me. Tata Chiabururi. Were you there? Oh, no, it's not in the appendix. Not helpful. I can't find it. Oh, Tata. No. Okay, well, they said basically, if we remove our armed forces, how can we trust you? What will happen to those who have collaborated with the colonial government? I told them that I could not give them definite answers until I've consulted you. In the meantime, I agreed with the British officials that it was possible to arrange a conference in order to discuss our surrender. Imagine that madness. Yeah, this is General China. So he's been shot in the neck, he's been arrested, he's been sentenced to death. He's writing a letter to Dedan Kimathi saying, I'm negotiating with these guys and we're talking about terms for surrender. Yeah. So he says, we agreed that 4 guerrilla leaders, 2 from Nyandawa and 2 from Kirinyaga, should attend the surrender conference. The British government will send its own 4 representatives. 2 will be appointed by the governor. General Erskine will appoint the other 2. They've assured me that these guerrillas will not be harmed or arrested, and that they will be allowed to return to the forest to report the proceedings of the conference. But they have made it clear that I will not be released until all of you have come out of the forest. In connection with this, the British government would like to know your position on the following questions. Are you willing to accept a ceasefire so the negotiations can end the war so that the negotiations to end the war can start? Do you think it is appropriate to send 4 guerrilla leaders to attend the surrender conference? In regard to the fact that the British government is calling for peace conference, do you think it is trying to trick us? What are your terms for negotiation? In conclusion, I want you to understand the reality of the situation and to realize that I am talking to you as one of the guerrilla leaders. In this case, I am insisting that we agree to attend the surrender conference. One thing is certain: if the negotiations fail to take place, if we refuse to surrender, the British are determined to continue fighting. My views are that if we don't negotiate for surrender now, there will not be any other chance. Remember, we are fighting both Europeans and Africans. That's the loyalists, yeah? Please give me your views regarding these important issues. You can contact me through the following address, yada yada. I use this address so that the Europeans on the farms will not confiscate the letters. They don't want such things. Goodbye, yours, General China. So Kamathi's replied, This letter was sent directly to the British authorities. He didn't send the letter to the address that he was given. He sent the reply directly to the British authorities. He said, these are the answers to your questions. One, if the British forces withdraw from the countryside, we will not kill Satachia Bururi, which I guess is the loyalists. The basic, sorry, is this the loyalists? Yeah. The basic reason is that we know that many of them are victims of British propaganda, like you said earlier. Generally, we believe in reconciliation and harmony between races. Many Africans, including those who are helping the British government in this war, generally long to see peace restored in our country. We believe that the unconditional withdrawal of your armed forces from the country, particularly from the African reserves, will restore peace in the nation and cooperation among the people. 3, those of other races, especially Indians and Arabs, who have sided with your government in this war, will have to leave the country when we regain our self-government. The rest have nothing to fear. They are welcome to stay. 4, I don't lead terrorists. I lead Africans who want their self-government and land. I lead them because God, Ngai, never created any nation to be ruled by another nation forever. Furthermore, we cannot allow anybody to deprive us of our birthright. If anyone wants to take our birthright away, he has first to kill all of us. Terrorists are persons who commit evil deeds, while we do the opposite. Of course, the colonial government is practicing terrorism and continuing to commit barbaric acts against our people. Hence, it has no right whatsoever to call us terrorists. 5, the call for peace negotiations is a dirty trick to kill my guerrilla fighters. We cannot forget that after our gentlemanly agreement of 8th of August 1953, that both sides should observe a ceasefire while peace negotiations were going on, your government took advantage of this, arrested and murdered several of my best men. 6, my soldiers will never leave these forests until the British government accepts our demands. 1, disarms its forces unconditionally. 2, releases all the political prisoners. 3, recognizes our country's independence. These are our terms for negotiations. Field Marshal D. Kimathi. Boom. The end. Yeah.
Then
So fast forward. Hey, top G for real. Fast forward. So now I'm going past this recommendation for Hannah Wamuyu. And now this is a letter that Dedan Kimathi wrote to General Kago, right? To another general. He says, many greetings. First, I want to inform you that I'm proud of your courage and patriotism. If we have many leaders like you, we'll be able to develop our guerrilla army into an invincible force. There is no doubt your steely leadership and revolutionary commitment are a great example to all of us. The report you sent to the Kenya Parliament is encouraging. I strongly believe that through your leadership and commitment, we'll be able to liberate Murang'a district before the end of this year. General Kariba has also forced the enemy to evacuate a large area of Nyeri district, and according to his recent report, his strategy is to liberate the whole region by the end of the year. From the report, we also learned about the atrocities and brutalities that the British have committed against our people, solely because they dared to demand their human rights and the land which was stolen from them. The British talk of democracy, but is it democracy when hundreds of our people are sent to the cemetery for saying they want our independence and our land back? Perhaps the British don't understand the meaning of our struggle. We've repeatedly said that we will fight until we drive them out of this land. We shall never surrender. Did you receive the circular letter I sent to all front commanders concerning General China's surrender? China has agreed to collaborate with our enemy, to work against the homeland, to save his neck. In this connection, he has told the enemy all he knows about the movement, including our military secrets. Furthermore, in order to prove his loyalty to his new friends, he has written to all Mount Kenya front commanders and the members of the Kenya Parliament, urging them all to call off the fighting and surrender to the British forces. I received a copy of his letter, and when I read it, I was filled with indignation. If China thinks that I will mortgage this great struggle to save his life, he must be crazy. We have written to China and denounced him for his treacherous acts. We have at the same time made it clear to the British authorities that we will not lay down our arms until they dismantle their war machine and leave the country. In these circumstances, my advice is simply this. You should have a general meeting with our forces and try to explain our position to them. Tell them to be more valiant and ruthless against the British effort to sell their terms of surrender to our people. During the meeting, stress the importance of unity and national patriotism and denounce China's treacherous acts simultaneously. Be satisfied with these few lines for now. I will let you know when and where the next KLFA General Conference will be held. Marshal Dedan Kimathi. Boom. That was a good little
Mm,
story. Like there was three letters in that one kind of, but they're all in different parts of the book. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. That was proper cool. Um,
No, very, very.
he
I mean,
also says here, oh, mm,
no, I mean it's just really it's good to kind of get the story, the timeline with some of what you're writing as well. It gives a picture of like just the different events that were taking place
yeah,
in the period of the fighting and the struggle, um, and
mm,
from Dedan's moment that he joined to the point where he was actually captured, which was seen as a signifier of the ending of the so-called Mau Mau, because obviously he was such a key um, person. But you know, in one of the writings that you just read out about several of his men being taken out, you know, his loyal men being taken out, these were the beginnings of him being encroached upon, or being able to be, you know, the wall being more porous into leading to the capture of him eventually, because these
hmm,
different moments, like China being arrested and then, you know, regurgitating all the information and just, you know, and then calling for everyone, yeah, just, you know, let's just quit, you know. And these are the moments that were bringing the holes into such a solid wall that had been formed through the oath, through the just military strategy, and through um, the cry of the people, the want of the people. The people were going there voluntarily into the forest saying, we want to join this movement. So it was really
exactly,
activation from all the people there, who wanted the colonial rule to stop, and all of the way that they were abusing the people, the locals, the people who owned the
hmm,
land. So yeah, it's just interesting to hear the timeline, the time frame of it, because it all leads up to this moment of his capture, of the
it
betrayal
does.
of that gentleman and the other one who end up shooting him in the leg. And um, when he's captured for a year, they keep him locked up. And there's so much footage, you know, of that part of his life that were filmed by, I don't know if you remember Pathé, or if you've heard of Pathé Studios. They're like a massive British um, like film studios from back in the day, and the storytelling that they have in their version of it, like all the people being caught and Dedan being caught, it's such, yeah,
Mm.
such
Yeah,
propaganda.
the one thing I'm noticing is that at no point does Dedan Kimathi seem to feel as though they're losing the fight. Do you know what I mean? In fact, he seems quite convinced that they're winning. He's like, we are definitely winning. Even when they are kind of getting pushed, like he's always saying, like, don't worry about it. If we keep fighting, we are going to win. You
Yeah,
know, but like a few parts in his letters, he's like, we're winning. He's like, we're winning this fight. He's like, we're up. These guys, we're pushing them around.
yeah,
That was the way that he felt about it. So you're right. It does kind of paint an interesting picture up until the point where he was captured.
yeah. Because
You
I
know,
guess it's he's because he knows that he is the morale booster. He has to have that
mm.
energy and consistency with that energy, because the fight is until they get all of the things you
Yeah,
listed.
he's the biggest personality in the yeah, absolutely. His face. He would go there, and apparently the local women loved him still. Apparently, if you walk through the village, the women would start screaming at him. That was that was a thing that was mentioned. That was mentioned a couple of times. Like
So
if he goes anywhere, the women
yeah,
became very excited.
so he had a wife and he had children, didn't he, as well? This is
Mm,
something that we haven't mentioned. His family. He
you're
was
right.
um, there is in fact some information about his parents as well, which I did find, and I'll try
Mm,
out. But you know, it's good to kind of mention his family setup as well, like what that was, because I didn't know that bit about the women swooning over him and stuff like that. But It's very clear that he was a hero, and that on this side of the fence, they really tried to put
Mm,
negative spin on it. But you can see he was a hero because, they commemorated his memory with a statue, a famous statue recently. Um,
mm,
and they adore him there. But really, it's quite sad what happens with these things as time passes. His family haven't really been looked after, and they were one of the key um, wishes that he had.
yeah.
Kind of not his deathbed, but as he was knew he was going to be taken out, he really wanted his wife looked after, um, and his children looked after. So,
It's not just his wife and children, though, right?
mm,
It is the families of all of the Kenya Land Freedom Army who have unfortunately kind of not been supported. So, as I read earlier, the Kenya Land Freedom Army made a point of supporting their families of fallen comrades. But since because the way that this thing played out, so Jomo Kenyatta was arrested because they believed that he was the head of the Mau Mau, which he wasn't. Right?
mm,
It was Dedan Kimathi. So they thought Jomo Kenyatta was the head. He did 7 years of hard labor. Um, the From some of the videos that I've seen, he maybe he was a bit older than the warriors. So he was part of an older generation. So there
mm,
was one video, one brother was like, we wouldn't have even invited him because we want him to stay as an uncle, and he shouldn't be fighting. We're the young ones. We're gonna fight. So we didn't. He never had anything to do with it. And the stance that Jomo Kenyatta has always taken is one of forgive and forget.
yeah,
One of peace. One of yeah, let's put the past behind us. Da 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 da. So ultimately, when they've released him, um, he has, gone down the political route and led the country. He became the prime minister, led the country to independence, became the president. When he did that, obviously, like I said, today there are still settlers on the land. So this
mm,
is very very different from the ideals that Dedan Kimathi is talking about in this book. Yeah,
mm,
and not just Dedan Kimathi, but others as well. It's very different from the ideals that the Kenya Land Freedom Army had. The Kenya Land Freedom Army were saying this is not over until the settlers are gone and we have our land back. But when Jomo Kenyatta was appointed, he was like, okay, boom, we're going to forgive and forget. They're going to keep their land. We're going to set up somewhere else. And the settlers are still there. People are buying Lipton tea. Do you know what I'm saying? So, like, I think that is a part of the reason why now they're using the N words. Do you know what I mean? Or now they're calling each other Mau Mau. I think that's probably a part of the reason. I don't know for sure still, because as you've heard, Dedan Kimathi does refer to them as Mau Mau a couple times in this book, you know. But he kind of uses KLFA and Mau Mau interchangeably, which
right.
is I don't know what that
That's
means.
yeah,
Um, but still, they're like the okay, look, let me read this next one, this short one. Yeah, this is from General Matemo, and he says, "Dear Colonel Wamungunda, I've received many of your letters concerning the British policy of land consolidation. I want to make it clear that no one should accept the consolidation of his land or support this evil policy. If any of our compatriots supports this policy, you should not hesitate to cut him down. This is an order. We are not going to buy the land which was stolen from us. It is a crime for any of us to discuss the land question when we are still fighting for it." He
mm,
says more, but that's the point I want to highlight. Yeah, that wasn't Dedan Kimathi who said that. Oh no, actually, I lie. It was Dedan Kimathi. Okay, he's signed this one off as he signed this letter off as Matemo, and Matemo was his code name, and I just remembered that
okay,
still.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah, Matemo
Wow.
was his code name. So it says that at the beginning of the book. Matemo was his code, his undercover name. So that's something that Dedan Kimathi said. Yeah, he was like, we're not going to discuss buying the land back.
Yes.
But what has happened ultimately, one like now, I'm told, is that Kenyans have had to buy some of the land back. If they want to live there, they have to buy it,
Yeah, which is
and they've had to
ridiculous.
part with money. And they
Yeah,
say we can't expect anything for free and yada yada yada. What kind of
people
madness? Do you know what I'm saying?
considering the bloodshed of the people who are originally from there. It's like it's so
Mm,
tasty. But it reminds me of the video you posted. in the group as well, which was showing the white settler discussing in I
Yeah.
think maybe 2022 was it. I think she filmed that with him, and it's an interview. And I think he's the first or second generation of a family of settlers, and he's like
Oh, this is
basically,
the Instagram video. Yeah.
yeah, he's like basically, yeah, on
Yeah.
both sides. On both sides, there were issues, and you have a tone of guilt, a tone. But when it comes to like that bit of the giving the land back, she asks him, and I love her for that, because
Mm.
she's like, yes, but do you think it's fair for us to have to pay for that land? One, and I think she says, don't you think it's time to give that land back? Would you give the
Mm.
land directly
If you want to be helpful,
if you
yeah,
really
wouldn't
want to?
that be helpful to give them the land? If you really
Yeah,
are sorry, wouldn't a
yeah,
good way to say sorry to be to give back what you
yeah.
stole?
And it's like you see all the backtracking, because that mindset, which a lot of South Africans have as well, white South Africans,
Hmm.
they just really do believe that it's theirs, and through whatever means it was
Yeah.
acquired. He even used that word, and I couldn't believe it. He's like, he
Yeah.
said the acquired, the A word. I was like, oh my god, these people, they really believe because they acquired it, it's theirs now. And so if you want it, you buy it,
Yeah.
which is like, so it shows you the lack.
Unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable, and it just shows you the lack of spirit, lack of kind of that
Mm.
energy of you talk about
Empathy,
respect, the universe, and
respect.
you know
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what is the
Yeah.
consequence of stealing. You're supposed to know that there's what's the word, reciprocity, I can't say it.
Reciprocity. Reciprocity. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have that sense. There's no like bit of them that feels that kind of regret. So yeah, I
Mm.
just feel like you really kind of get into grips with that colonial mindset by reading into this story of him. But you're also seeing what it takes to get away or to step away from that. There's a lot of bloody violence,
Mm.
and the organization of it, Nate, is like so interesting, because this is years of planning, years and years and years of understanding the need for the forest, and the skills and the ways of the ancients, tapping into
Mm.
that comes into play, mixed with the guns, mixed with
Mm.
the cutters and all of them things there. So um,
Mm.
really powerful.
This,
How have you found the how have you found it, like, in terms of how it affected you learning about this story, amongst all the rest of them? Because obviously,
it's kind of painted a very serious picture of the British for me, because like this settler mindset, this colonial mindset, because like you said, it happened in South Africa and many other places, but it also reminded me that it was the British who went to America and settled there as well and brought
right,
smallpox and did
yeah,
all of that and said, boom, those weren't Americans who went to America. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It
it
was
was the
British
British,
people who went to America and
Europeans,
then said, we're now Americans. It's
yeah.
British people who went to South Africa, so we're now South Africans.
You
Do you
you
know what
know
I'm
what the
saying? Like,
amount
well,
is
I think it
German.
was Dutch as well
Yeah, it's
in South
Europeans, but the
Africa.
biggest amount in America is German.
Europeans. Mm.
Section.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
it's so
I
mad.
didn't know that.
Yeah, it's Germans. They were the biggest
I didn't
amount
know that.
in America. I thought it was either going to
That's
be the
interesting.
French, maybe the French, but it's the Germans. They're the highest, biggest amount of the settlers from that colonial time of America. But British, yeah,
Wow.
they all did that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I have recently been, well, for this month, I've been checking, and Britain basically had the most colonies out of everybody. I think they had 120 different
wow,
colonies around the world. Yeah, they had the most, and I think French was a close second.
right,
Or I don't even know if it was close actually, but French were the second, but British were first. They had the most colonies. That was something that was an insight that I got from. That's how this made me feel. Do you know what I mean? I was
right,
like, you know what? Let me look at Britain, where I'm living, where they're
yeah,
asking me to pay tax every year. They're sending me a letter talking about you ain't paid your tax. Shut up. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's reminded me
Yeah.
of the environment that I'm in, and yeah, it's kind of just reinforcing how I feel about the place. Like I said, for me, the main thing that hit me was how recent this was. You know, they were crushing people's testicles and putting hot bottles inside women's vagina 70 years ago, 60 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? They were firing. There were British people in Kenya shooting black people like less than a lifetime ago. You
Yeah.
know, and
Well, yeah, my
that
mum
for
was
me,
born. That's when my mum was born. 53. So
look at that.
yeah. So
Less
that's
than a lifetime ago. Less than a
yeah.
lifetime ago. Yeah. So that for me has been quite sobering. Because like you said, Steve Biko was after Dedan Kimathi, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, even Steve Biko was like the South Africa thing is incredibly recent. But I mean, just this, I don't know. This was different for me because I guess I've heard a lot about South Africa with Winnie Mandela being such a big name, you know, and
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela being such a big name, and
Yeah.
even Steve Biko being quite a popular name, you know, not as popular as the Mandelas, but still I've heard his name. Yeah, Dedan Kimathi, I had never heard his name before we started this. I'd never heard
No,
of
and
Dedan
it's,
Kimathi.
it's so deep and
I
such a
think
good
it was,
done to bring him up
yeah,
because
mum.
that's such a key point timeline. So when you go, because we were more at this time, I was born in the 80s and the apartheid was still going on in the 80s. Okay, which is crazy. It
Mm,
stopped in 95.
mm,
Like,
mm.
so obviously we're in that history time period. Um,
Yeah,
whereas the
that's
just
exactly.
before that, that's my mum. She grows up learning about potentially about those type of people like Steve Biko and all of that, or
Mm,
my granddad would have known maybe about Dedan Kimathi, and he would have seen the change of like the independence sweeping through Africa, which again he's alive, so it's still so recent. But we just
mm,
see black and white. It's like the black and white image
mm,
that makes
mm.
it seem
Yeah.
so far away. But now I start to see it as
So
color.
far away, but it's not. This is our lifetime. This is
Yeah,
very modern history. This is not
very.
the 1700s. This is not, do you know what I mean? This is not the 1800s. This is
Yeah,
1950. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this was the
yeah,
other day, for real. This was
yeah.
literally the other day. So I think that has been one of the most sobering thoughts for me, that we are where we are. Um, like, okay, so for example, my life and my situation is very much so affected by my parents and what they did do or what they didn't do. You know, some of the advantages that my dad could have given me but didn't give me because he weren't built, or you know, some of the hurdles that my mom put in front of me unknowingly, like have affected me for say the first 20 years of my life, right? So now I'm 37, you know, like it's a big chunk of my life that has been affected by some of the decisions that my parents have made. And people might be like, oh, why can't you just this? Or why can't you just that? Or why can't you just, and me as an isolate, as a one person, do you know what I mean? I'm seeing in my life how challenging it is for me to do things that I guess other people who grew up in two-parent households find easy, or other people who, like, even certain things that like people who grew up in um conscious households, like Pan African households, they might accept certain things differently from me, or they might stand on business in a way where I might freeze up and I don't know what to say, or I don't know how to clap back, and these men are clapping back fast, and I'm thinking, raw, I gotta unlearn this. Do you know what I mean? And it's like it's very sobering for me to just know that, okay, that was me as a one person, but as a nation, you know, and not as an isolated incident, but as a nation, Kenya is brand new in terms of coming out of their colonization. Do you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Like, there are still a lot of things that need to be done there. The work is very much so not finished.
yeah,
In fact, some of the generals, when Jomo Kenyatta was appointed, certain generals went back into the forest and they were like, we are not finished. You know what I mean? Some of them went back into the forest and
yeah,
tried to keep fighting, you know? And that I really kind of resonate with. That I really understand, because the children still don't have the land. Like you said, Dedan Kimathi's family don't have the land and don't have anything that they
Mm,
deserve, you
yeah.
know, and not just him, but that the families of all the Kenya Land Freedom Army soldiers, all of them should be looked after, all of them, but they are not. You know,
Yeah.
they are having to either buy back the land from the settlers, which they're refusing to do, understandably, or starve, or scrape for a living. Those are the options that are put in front of them. You
And you
know,
think,
while meanwhile
yeah.
these men have got 11 plantations where they're growing tea on Kenyan soil and selling it around the world. And
Yeah.
Kenyans are not involved in that as much as they
Right.
should be, you know?
Yeah. This kind of like sweeping the land. It makes me want to learn a bit more about Gabon as well, because there's so many plantations there, which are, I believe, like British owned and different corporations. But you take over a whole
Mm-hmm.
swath of lands, you take away the kind of sustainability aspects of a nation, of a group, because obviously without land they can't grow things. They can't just make their farming pastoral lands. So they were good for farming. They were good at farming. That was one of the key things about the Kikuyu people and different people, that pastoral lands, meaning that they knew how to like cultivate the land for food, regular food, and all of that. But when you take chunks of that
Mm,
and then you structure it in a vision of a corporation, so this whole bit
mm,
is just to make factory goods and blah blah blah. So the access is now stopped from the people. So of course they must fight until that changes. And
mm,
Africa over, that youth that you talk about, the fact that Africa is so young, like it is, it's a baby
mm,
in terms of
mm.
independence happening, and then
In
people,
terms of independence, yeah.
yeah, and people look at it and say, oh, why can't Africa do this and why can't Africa do that? Well, because these baby nations that were named, that were
I'm
given
telling you,
people, are babies.
like there
And
might have been a time where I would have thought that, there might have been a time when I was Christian or way back where I would have thought, African leaders are corrupt, or do you know
yeah,
what I mean, or da, 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 da. Now I'm telling you, it's really hitting me, or it's just
it's got,
reinforcing for me, you
it's
know.
got, because even now we've got the Burkina Faso leader, Ibrahim Toure, doing
Ibrahim
the
Traore,
Toure's doing it, and we back
doing the
it, but
work.
still know in our hearts we feel a fear. But it's like we've regularly always
Mm.
produced these fighters against
The thing
oppression.
is, okay, interesting point about that actually, the Sahel Alliance, is that they are, and this relates to the last thing I want to read in this book as well. So, an interesting point about the Sahel Alliance that I think is worth throwing in the conversation is that Ibrahim Traore has kind of partnered up with, or not partnered up, but cozied up with North Korea and Russia. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are two of the countries
uh,
that the Sahel Alliance, they're kind of supporting them,
yeah,
right? So they can kind of get their claim, which I think is interesting, but cool, because in reading this, okay, check this out, right? This is the last thing I'm going to read. This is a letter from Dedan Kimathi to the Army Commander Magu, written on the 20th of May 1954. Um, it's a short one, so I might. Should I just read the whole thing? No, I'm just going to read the point. The point that I've written. He says, I have been informed that reading my letters is prohibited in the great city of Nairobi. If one is caught doing so, he will be severely punished. I have also heard that after reading the letter I sent them, the Russian government has decided to lock up the British foreign minister. Check that out.
wow,
Like, wow, after they read one of Dedan Kimathi's letters and they locked up the British foreign minister in Russia.
wow,
In
wow.
it, in it. Like that is definitely quite telling. That is definitely, I think, quite remarkable, quite noteworthy, definitely worth knowing. Do you know
It
what I
just
mean?
shows
Like,
how much they've like really squashed the story down, and that's why we can't probably find footage of Kamathi speaking and the burning of all the information, because they really don't want.
yeah, they burn piles. This book could have been volumes, volumes. The way
Yeah,
these guys were documenting things, there is no way that this is it. There is absolutely no way. The little that's in this book here is so thoroughly documented that there is absolutely no way that this is it. There is piles that these guys have destroyed.
yeah, yeah.
Tons.
because
which,
they understand that it's going to reveal a lot of the complicated nature of it, how far they were getting, the actual Mau Mau were getting with regards to the fight. It will reveal a lot of that if all of that comes out.
and this
So,
is recent. This is
and
recent. This is the same Britain that we're in right now. These
yeah,
guys
well, exactly. So they've
hiding
got
their shame.
of the
They're trying to
reason.
hide their shame from you and
Yeah,
me, so we can
yeah.
pay tax and shut up. Do you know what I mean? That's it.
So I just want to ask you really quickly, did you write any poetry yet? And what kind
I'm
of...
starting now. I'm going to start now.
So for the audience, we've got Auntie Jean's is tomorrow. It's at the... let me just read out what is going on. There's going to be a lot of exciting stuff. I did mention earlier that Auntie Jean's African Culture Market is what this is for. This is where we perform every single month what we've learned. And we need to convert all of this knowledge that we've just been discussing into poetry.
Poetry.
And
Yeah,
so,
so it doesn't have to be a poem telling the story. It can be a poem telling the story, or it can be a poem about how it's made you feel, or it can be a poem about someone else in the struggle or related to the story that you think is interesting. It can be anything within that context. Mhm.
exactly. So, do what you feel kind of comes to you from what you've heard. Like, you can come along tomorrow and share some of your thoughts. African Cultural Market takes place at Magdalen Hall Association. Um, Unfortunately, there's no wheelchair access, so just something to bear in mind. But you can buy an online ticket as well on Eventbrite. So just look for Auntie
Five
Jean.
pounds.
Yeah, it's £5 entry, and yeah, 2 till 8 p.m. The Revolutionary Minds bit would be from 3 till 5. I believe, is that correct? 3 to 5.
3 till 4. 3 till 4 we got on the flyer.
And we'll be sharing our poetry. So I have
How are you getting on with yours?
I started. So we had a get together at this place here. We were watching, or we attempted to watch a play. We didn't quite get through the play, but we did watch some footage, which kind of gives you the kind of background of colonialism, and particularly from the British, and how long ago it started. So I found this other story about Otenye, a brother called Otonye, sorry, who is another rebel that is just incredible, and worth kind of studying in his own story. So way before, so in the early hundreds, 1900s, there were still rebels. There were people fighting against these people coming in and encroaching upon their land. And
Mm.
his wife were a big trouble for the British. They annoyed them because they were getting away with just messing up their plans, their projects, their different things, coming in, attacking the British, and then leaving them messed up, kind of thing. Until unfortunately, Yotonye, one of the occasions, he stabbed like a big league, big guy, big British guy that was like, top guy. He speared him. He speared him in the back, and it's like a famous story.
Wow.
Um, I loved it. I was just like, yeah. But unfortunately, the guy called Northcote, he survived. He survived the attack, and then this is the evil of the British, or this is what they do. So in that survival, he then comes back when he's healed, and they attack a whole village of people. They know where Otonye is and where his wife resides. His wife is also a healer, like she's like a version of Mary Seacole. So she's treating the wounds of the fallen
Wow.
soldiers. Yeah, so the two of them are power like that, and they're doing these great stuff. And then they have to give him up. They end up having to give him up because they're
Wow.
burning the villages. They're threatening to kill
Killing
every
innocence.
killing their innocence, and that's what they were willing to do across the planet. This, when you say 160,
Yeah.
they did it brutally, and when we say British are brutish, that's the reason. Is their violence level was unheard of, and they do it in the most posh accent. Do you know what I mean? They do it, and they're talking proper. Queen's England, and
Kenya.
then yeah, Kenya,
The
and like
settlers in Kenya.
it's and they
Yeah,
this is kind of where my poem goes, is kind of looking at that kind of
yeah.
positioning of like
It says
being
a lot about the way they frame things as well. You know, the
yeah,
framing. You know, like it when it's something that happens to this day, and we see it. You know, like when a black person is arrested, like a child. Yeah, like let's say a black 15-year-old. They're like this man or young man. But if it's like a
yeah,
19-year-old
yeah,
white person, they're like this boy. Do you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? It's the way that they frame things. They'll call themselves settlers, but anyone who comes here, they're called immigrants. Do you know what I
immigrants,
mean? Like I'm telling you, it's really they're consistent.
yeah. They,
They're
it's
consistent in the
they
way
have,
that they're wicked with it.
they haven't changed a bit, and so
They haven't
um
changed a bit.
yeah, I do. I don't know. Let me see if I can share a couple of words, if this can inspire anyone. Or, I don't know.
So
Let me
that's what your poem was about, yeah? Or tenure. A tenure.
No, 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 it's not. It's I was just mentioning him because I found him because okay, another useless fact
Okay.
or useful fact. It depends on how you view it. Because rabbit holes are vast, and once I go down one, I'm just like, so like yeah, Otenyo Nyammantere. I haven't written
Hmm.
about him, but I have mentioned him because I'm saying it is deep to know the cycle is tight like this. And we can sometimes now feel like, oh, no one's doing anything. No one's fighting and all of that. But there are fighters popping up all the time. And we're the ones who have to focus our eyes on them and see them and then speak what they did and bring it to the world. The white lens is not going to show you that.
Mm.
The British lens is not going to teach you that. There's not in their interest in being empowered like that. Do you know what I mean? So my take was more showing all of that. So I read it out before, so bear with me. These are just kind of thoughts that were coming after we watched. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So Dedan Kimathi, a deep mahogany rich soul, put arms, not hands up, to the land invaders, the dead living souls, the zombies, the settlers, the spirit of Otenyo Nyamatere. I have to get that right. The spirit of Otenyo Nyamantere journeyed across lifetimes and Kisii shores. So Kisii is an area in Kenya as well that Otenyo was from, into Dedan's commitment to the necessary cause. This, the warriors call for self-governance and land, sworn into by the means to lead the Kikuyu against the cold souls who sold souls, left the people with morsels from their own soil. Those who found joy in scarring and scaring returning souls, those who grew bulkier from acquiring and categorizing souls, who interfered with the sacred parts of souls, corrupted continuity and conned lost souls, did dodgy deals with desperate souls who were hungry, thousands of years old pastoral techniques disrupted by aliens who leave lush lands bleak. Oh no.
What?
My battery.
Oh no.
It's
Okay.
10%. Okay, cool. It's fine. Who were hungry, thousands of years old pastoral techniques disrupted by aliens who leave lush lands bleak. Give thanks to the noble Wangari Maathai, who is an eco warrior, planter of 51 million trees. So she recently died. She's gained a Nobel Prize in Kenya for all of her work that she was doing to empower everyone on how to grow things in the soil again.
Hmm.
So she created the Green Belt movement, empowerment movement from the war spoils.
Wow. Okay. She created the Green Belt movement.
Yes, Yeah. Um, exquisitely dressed with suits from Savile Row, barking British demands at broken and bared souls, placing churches on hills, but still Churchill found insufferable ways to torture and maim souls. First Arabized, then Christianized, the brutal empires decapitated the boldest souls to legitimize the mass taking of black souls, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful black souls, minerals morphing into the people's chokehold. The ones who named the rebels against subjugations, the Mau Mau, spoke of Kenya, African Union, as a problem. How? Africans, the problem? How? Pleading for autonomy over their nations, over language, culture, heritage, identity, over sustenance, shelter, dignity, and pride. A right to education, provisions, a right to decide. A life as fair as those fairer fair, surely fair. Families landed from ships to build their wealth, their crests swelling with a reservoir of opportunity. The Churchills, the Grants, building railroads with slave wages, shipping more indentured from another foreign land, eyes wild as Soran, white wizardry captivating hectares of ancestral. The Kushites, the Nilotic, the Bantu, the ones who settled with a respect for their mother's soil. Okay, so that's just in reference to Kenya's full of so much diversity. There's like
Hmm.
so many groups that over 500 years have come and settled in African, I mean, African groups. Not,
Mm.
these
Yeah,
foreign.
yeah, 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 yeah.
When they come, they respect the land. They respect the ways of the land.
Exactly.
That's what we are.
Mm.
The KAU formed in 1944, 20 years post UK annex of East India, protectorate from the Sultan of Zanzibar. 1963, the independent Kenya is forever changed. The touch of the devil's hand, a permanent new feature in the land. I might change that because it's not permanent. Propaganda majors, first
Mm.
degrees when it comes. Like the word ISIS became synonymous with the terrorist cells. Isis was an ancient goddess. So many rounded up in circles, villagers gathered together, a cycle of death and birth, as the Kikuyu, who were the originals of Kenya, the forest wanderers and village architects, the feeders, the providers, the medicine dispensers, the weapon hiders. Sorry, I don't even remember writing all of this. I was just like, this was flow. So I'm like,
You've written so much. Like,
yeah,
wow, 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 wow.
that's it. And then my notes were 1900s failed projects, tests on lands with peoples. So what I'm learning is because of the Mau Mau, because of all these groups forming, because of even Otenya's time, they were pissed. The British and all these people were so annoyed because they just kept getting interrupted. They couldn't just finish their projects in peace. They wanted to go there, drink their tea, and have teas and soirees, and job done. But it wasn't made easy
Mm.
because of these rebels. So that's, and then yeah, state your oaths. Solomon Mimaya. Yeah, these were just notes, people's names that I put down. But I mentioned the Grants and the Churchills. There's two kind of examples of the whites that came with their family crests and their ideas of like, I'm going to make Kenya my future, my legacy. Those were the attitudes of the British at that time. So yeah, that's it. That's all.
That is way. Come on, Stella. Listen, that has definitely inspired me. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start. I intended on writing a short piece because I thought there's way too much. There's so much, and it's like a proper It's an emotive subject. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I don't know. The more I think about it, and the more I think about what to write, I feel like I'm kind of just rehashing the same old colonial nonsense. You know what I mean? Colonizers come and ruin everything, and we had it good, and they come and destroy it, and it's jarring. It's annoying for me to write it. Do you know what I'm saying? But the way you've portrayed it in that piece was beautiful. Again, you really know, Stella, you are one of my faves. So I'm really,
But you know
you
what?
already know.
There's so much talent. Like that's such a big compliment. Seriously, but like,
Listen, Stella, I've heard you say some things, man. I've heard you say some things. I feel like your poetry is generally very insightful. I know some good poets, you know, I know a lot of good poets, but you are absolutely one of them.
thank,
100%. You
thank you,
are up there with the 5%. Do you know what I
thank
mean? You're up there with the top bracket, man. I'm telling you,
you.
like, wow, 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 wow. Just
Oh,
to take that and transmute it into something so beautiful
mm,
is a gift, man. Do
thank
you know what I
you,
mean? So give thanks.
thank you. I look forward to hearing yours tomorrow. I forward to
Hey, me too. I'm looking forward to hearing it as
it.
well.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm looking forward to hearing it as well.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be excellent. So, I think we can end it there. What do you think? Is there any more?
Last thing to mention,
Yeah.
yeah, is who we're doing next month.
Okay.
Next month's
Ooh, drum
Revolutionary
roll.
Mind. Next month, Revolutionary Mind. So we're doing masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. That's what we're going for, yeah. So last
Yeah.
month was Yaya Santoa. This month is Dedan Kimathi. Next month we're doing Dandara dos Palmeiras.
Ooh,
Dandara dos Palmeiras. So big up yourself if you know who she is, and if you don't, then find out. Dandara dos Palmeiras. She is the partner of Zumbi dos Palmeiras.
oh wow.
Zumbi, um, yes, it was actually Nat's suggestion. Yeah,
Okay.
Nat suggested we do this person, Dandara dos Palmeiras, and I said okay, I'll put it on the shelf, and I was like, I'll come back to her, you know, whenever, because I know I used to do capoeira when I was younger, so I learned about Zumbi, and you know we kind of like had to sing songs about him, and we had to like research him and whatever. But I never touched his wife, never knew much about his wife. So when Nat suggested his wife, I was like, boom! I was thinking of doing Zumbi one day, but still, this is even better. So
Yeah.
I put it on the shelf, and I never got back to it. And then Jael reached out to me, and she said, "Can we do Dandara dos Palmeiras?" And I was like, "What?" So boom, there you go. Next month, Dandara dos Palmeiras. So we're gonna learn all there is to know about the Quilimbos and the Capoeiristas and Brazil, Angola, and yeah, that kind of side of things. So I'm very much so looking forward to that because that's something I've touched already, but I don't know her story. I don't know much about her, you know.
Mm.
Um, and then I've already bought my book for the next one. I've already bought my book for the next one, Stella. I haven't started it yet, but I already bought my book for the next
Oh,
one. Do you know what I'm
excellent.
saying?
Excellent.
I've already copped it, so
Come on.
I'm trying not to read it until we get there. But boom, that
I mean,
one I bought. That was black. Big up Black Child Promotions.
yeah.
Get me? I caught my book. Um,
Big
so
up,
I'm
big
gonna try not to read it
100%.
while I'm studying.
Okay. Yeah, no, that is
Mm.
excellent. And yeah, for those who tuned in all the way to there and you saw the book that he just flashed up, you know what's coming in February. So no excuses. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
cool. But other than that,
yeah,
that is all I got. That's all I
excellent.
got. That's all I got. Let's before your battery locks off the whole thing. Even
Yes,
my battery still, but
it's been
yeah,
excellent.
guys, thank you so much for your
Great.
attention.
Yeah, so grateful to have you, Nate. Thank you for saving the day. Honestly, I was
Oh,
panicking.
Stella, you did it. You saved the day.
Um,
Big up Shakara as well. Large
yes,
up Kimbunga Media. Thank you for giving us this platform so that we can, expand our knowledge, so we can grow, so we can develop. Because if it weren't for the community, I would not be doing this. I wouldn't do it by myself. I might try, but I'd probably get to that month 3 and then fizzle out and do something else because I'm. But because I'm doing this with the community, this has added so much value to my life. One thing I like to say as a sign off as well, just to reinforce for everybody, if you're watching this at home, you don't have to join us at Auntie Jean's Market. I know Kimbunga is an international platform, so I would recommend that you and a group of your friends, please take this idea, pick one revolutionary mind every single month and just do some research on them. No one's saying you have to be an expert on the subject. No one's saying you have to learn everything there is to know about John Jack Dessalines or everything there is to know about Thomas Sankara. But take a month and give Thomas Sankara his respect. Like learn about him, learn his story, write some notes. You don't have to write a poem. You can paint a picture. You can make an interpretive dance. Do whatever you want. Do something creative, or you can even have just like a discussion with a group of friends. But please take this idea, bring it with you into your communities. The idea is free. No one's charging for it. So study, man. Learn. Black power, more life to everybody. Yeah, that's what I got to say.
Real quick, we still got a little bit of time, so let's shout out some of
Mm.
the events that are coming up. So obviously tomorrow, Auntie Jean's, we will see you there. We will see you there. It's the last one of the year. You have to be there, man.
One
Or
hundo. Yeah, man.
we've also got Sea with the Sea. Do you want to talk about Sea with the Sea, the Capricorn
Yeah, yeah,
event?
yeah. See with the sea. That's my firstborn child. So this Revolutionary Minds event is the second event that I run. The first event is called Conversations with the Constellations. It's an astrology themed poetry event because I'm also an avid astrologer, big into my astrology. So each month, all of the poets that perform are of a specific star sign. So next month is going to be, or the next month, January 5th, is going to be Capricorn. We've got Chef Adonis, who's a good friend of mine, and we've got Grace, who's very talented. I'm very much, and hopefully an open mic full of Capricorns. Yeah, so if you are in London, it's at Wellspace Community Centre. Find it on Instagram. C with the C for Conversations with the Constellations. I couldn't put all of that in the thing. So C with the C. Find us on Instagram. Come check it out. It's a very unique event. Nothing else like it in the country or the world, as far as I'm concerned.
There's
So
nothing like
yeah, man.
the world.
Come check it out. Do you know what I mean? It's an experiential study of astrology. We experience the energy. It's not a YouTube. It's not a book. You're in a room full of Capricorns, and we're talking about Capricorn energy. We're breaking it down, and then we get them to give us energy, and then we take it home and we can meditate on that. And I do that every single month. I'm doing that for 5 years now. So large up C with a C. That is a passion project of mine, and I think that has even really helped me to conceptualize this once a month, pick a revolutionary idea, because yeah, so that is coming 5th of Jan. Come check it out. Follow us on Instagram. Follow Minds of Revs as well. Minds of Revs on Instagram. So that is the Revolutionary Minds Instagram page. The event that we're talking about today is called Revolutionary Minds. We are the Garvey Village Poets. Let's throw that in there. But yeah, come follow Minds of Revs. Out of Noise.
Yeah, so
Poetic Temple. Sorry, Poetic Temple. That's what I meant to say.
Thank you. I've just given you a round of applause there. I don't know if you heard it. I don't know if the audience
I
heard
heard that. I did hear it.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that noise? It was a mistake.
No. So the next mention
Okay.
is the Poetic Temple. Yes, we've got 2 events coming up as well, which is the second. Oh my God. First one is going to be the 8th of January, which is a Wednesday, the second Wednesday of the month. And that's at the Africa Centre. It's called Poetic Temple. It's poets, so people of extraterrestrial substance. The subject matter is Afrofuture Now. So write a poem that's all about how you interpret that title and bring it along, and you can do a reading. If you don't have a poem that is centered around that subject, it's also fine. You're welcome to sign up for the open mic. It's a beautiful atmosphere. You get to get some lovely drinks by the Maki Bar and try some rhum arrangé, which is a Martinique style of rum. And yeah, just be like wowed by the amazing poets and poetry. And then you can share because there's an open mic space. So the subject is Afro Futures Now. And then the other event is at the Queen of the South, which is another Black-owned event space, a pub in Tulse Hill, 2 minutes from Tulse Hill Station. You just like literally come out the station and you walk 2 steps and you're there. So and it's lovely space, really
Literally.
cozy. And that one is on the 21st of January. So in the new year, if you want to be doing lots of poetry, you want to experience like learning about astrology and seeing through poetry how that manifests in the space, learning all about the Capricorns. If you want to come to Auntie Jean's tomorrow, and then also if you want to learn more about yeah, if you just want to jump on a mic and give some of your extra magic.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are the
I
events.
can't remember the date of Danny's event, man.
Oh, Danny's event is
Danny,
coming up, which is Speak Your Truth. It's going to be at Netta Vital, um,
well
and
done.
the date of that is the. Let me just get that for you. And you are going to be headlining for that one.
I'm the orator, yeah.
Yeah.
So I should know
And
it, but
so
I have to check on my phone, which I'm using.
it's okay. That's fine. Got it here. It's going to be on the what's the date there? Second Sunday of every month. The second Sunday of every single month. It will be at the
That's right.
Netta Mat Centre on Efra Road. So there's a Netta Mat Centre,
Yeah.
not Vital, Netta Mat Centre. Speak Your Truth is
Next time I'm at
London's
centre.
first children
It,
focused poetry event. First ever
yeah,
children.
it's a child focused poetry event. So the idea is we're going to be encouraging young people to express themselves. So I'm not really a headliner. I am the facilitator. It's kind of like a workshop, and we're going to be
Yeah.
getting some young people to come and speak their truth. That's what we're going for. We're going to talk them through some subjects and get them to maybe step out of their comfort zone a little bit. Um, and then hopefully get some of them to stand up and perform on in front of the others. So if you have young people, it's a very good idea to help the younger community to express themselves. It's something that's missing. Our generation, if any of you guys are kind of like, we had youth clubs, we had stuff like that. A lot of that is missing now. There's not many things for the youth to do, which is a part of the reason why they kind of end up just outside, or just on their phones. So, really, this is a good way for us to engage our young people, the young people within our community. So, if you have any children, I think 15 or younger, maybe 16 or younger, if you've got any children that's kind of within that bracket, then bring them. Yeah,
Yes.
bring them. I think 5 is like the youngest. 5 to 15, I believe,
Yeah.
is the age bracket. So if you've got any children within that bracket there, or around that bracket, and you feel like they can fit in, or they're competent enough, or they're respectful enough, then bring them.
So
Second Sunday of every month.
yeah, make sure you follow the Instagram pages that we've mentioned. So Speak Your Truth. Yeah, Speak Your
Hmm.
Truth. Just type that into IG,
Hmm.
you'll find it there. Poetic Temple is also on IG and C with the C. And then you can follow Mind of Revs
Yeah,
as well.
man. And
And make
texture
sure
event as well.
and
Follow
texture.
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 Come on, I heard I missed a banging texture last night, man.
Yes. Jeez. Duality did some rapping that was like unexpected. It was so
I
dope.
saw I saw snippets. I saw snippets.
Yeah,
I was like, okay,
fire.
D.
It was fire. And El
Yeah.
Crisis just tore it up. And yeah, Day Cloud, amazing, amazing, using jazz. And yeah, yeah, it was so good. But on that note, we have to go for sure because this is gonna die. But it's been great,
Yeah, mine just
great
flashed up
chatting.
10% now. So
Really great chatting to you, brother. So we'll
always
see
a pleasure, Stella. For real. I'm gonna
you.
see you tomorrow anyway. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll
Cool.
see whoever joins us.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Kimbunga Media, and we'll see you next month for our next talk.
Love.
Love, peace. Okay.
No, this is the bit. 'Cause I don't know. This is our first time using this platform. So how do I lock off? Hold on.
I'm ending the broadcast.